I don't have to discuss my feelings with anybody. I don't need any sort of therapy or anything like that. I'm in a good mood. It's been a while since I've been on because I've been so busy with playing and working and stuff like that. So it's nice to be back. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining in. Hello, Demetrius. Hello, Nate.
Likewise.
Yeah, you were off at the European Championships, or what did you have? The seniors, or what were you playing in?
No, the European Black Ball Championship. So baby ball, English pool. Ooh. Yeah, I thought I'd give that a crack and see how that went, and went okay. We did quite well. I think we were massively unlucky not to qualify for the knockout stages with the results that we had and the amount of points that we got, but just other results kind of went against us, and it meant that we just missed out on getting through the playoffs, which, considering what a small country the Netherlands is as far as English black ball goes, English 8-ball, I think we did pretty well. Had a good time.
How many players did you have on your team?
5. Team of 5, and then that was the men's A team, but we had a men's B team as well, which was 7 players, and a seniors team, which was another 5 players. Yeah.
Okay, and then how many of those players are transplants out of your 5?
Are what?
Transplants. You're Dutch, but you're Scottish, right?
I'm the only one that's originally from a different country. The other 4
okay, so the rest are all Dutch.
born and bred, not just Dutch born and bred, but born and bred in this area of the Netherlands in Limburg. Okay. So yeah.
Oh yeah, the only reason I ask is it really seems like what do you call it, baby balls? What do you call it?
Yeah, I call it baby ball. Yeah.
Oh. I've heard marbles too, right? I kind of like marbles.
Yeah, you could call it a bit marbles, baby ball.
I like marbles. I'm going to call it marbles. It really seems like marbles is strictly pretty much like a UK type of game. I think they play it a little bit maybe in New Zealand. They might play it a little bit in India. But for the most part, I guess British colonies. But for the most part, I don't really see marbles played anywhere else in the world. Am I right or wrong on that?
It is primarily in the UK. They all have strong teams. Ireland, Northern Ireland, Wales, England, Scotland, they all have strong teams. But you'd be surprised how massive it is, absolutely massive in France, for example. Oh. France is huge amount of players that they take to these tournaments. There's a massive game in France.
Well, they have almost no pool players, so maybe that makes sense.
Well, I don't know why it is. It just is. It's big in Belgium as well. If I go through the countries that are represented at the European Championships, you've got the home nation. So the 2 islands, Ireland, Northern Ireland, Scotland, England, Wales, France, Belgium, the Netherlands, Catalonia. So that small part of Spain, it's massive there, apparently just in that small area. So they have a team. Gibraltar. Obviously, there's a lot of expat community from the UK that lives in Gibraltar, so Gibraltar has a team. Malta, massive in Malta. It's the main sport in Malta. These guys are treated like superstars kind of thing. The crowd that were there and the atmosphere that was made by the crowd whenever the Maltese... It was live on Maltese television, terrestrial television, which you don't get anywhere else for any pool sport, that it comes on TV. Just you're flicking through the television and you've got your afternoon standard programs, and all of a sudden there's the pool on terrestrial TV. So that shows you how big it is in Malta. It's in certain parts of the world, and when the World Championships come around, the World Championships will be in Malta again next year. And then, yes, Australia have it's quite big in Australia. South Africa, it's quite big as well. It's played by a lot of players, but not a lot of countries, probably. You could say that a huge amount of players, but not a huge amount of countries that are.
And what's the difference? I haven't seen this game. Is it stripes and salads kind of a game? Is it played?
No, it's reds and yellows. Reds and yellows.
Oh, I've seen. Okay, and then it's played on a tight pocketed smaller table, or what?
It's what I would say. What I would liken it to is it's reds and yellows, slightly smaller than the balls that we're used to playing with, and it's a bar box table that's cut like a snooker table.
Yeah, I think
it's the best way to describe it.
I've seen some.
It's a bar box size, but the cut on the rails is a snooker table.
I thought it was a 6-foot table. Is it a 7-foot table?
7 foot. Yeah.
Oh, I was thinking it was a 6-foot table. Okay. It's a fun game. We play it every year at the Moscone Cup. It's you'll be surprised how hard it is. Demetrius, you even teach this. When you're cutting balls down the rail, you're not aiming for the pocket. You're aiming for basically the rail connected to the pocket, right? like right, within a couple inches of, the inside point of the jaw if you're cutting a ball down the rail, because that's the center of the pocket on a 9-foot pool table. The center of the pocket is not the actual center of the pocket, because you can hit sometimes, especially on a valley pool table, you can hit 2 diamonds up the rail, no problem. It still falls pretty easily. So the center of the pocket can't be the pocket. It's got to be, 3, 4, 5 inches up the rail. If you hit the rail at all going in on these tables,
doesn't go in.
You will miss the ball. And it's a really weird thing to not aim for basically the inside point shooting down a rail. It's really actually hard for a 9-ball player to make that shot.
Everything's played a little thinner, and also the white ball, the cue ball, is slightly smaller than the rest of the balls.
Oh, weird.
So when you're playing a ball down the rail and you're thinking, if I just contact the rail and the ball at the same time, that's generally how you aim a ball down the rail if it's frozen at the rail on the game we normally play. If you do that, then you're missing every single time. So you've got to. Yeah.
Well, what I found, and I've played a bit of 8-ball, and what I found is, in general, like back when the IPT was around, almost 20 years ago, we played a lot of big table 8-ball. And, 8-ball is one of the few games that's probably a lot easier to play on a 9-foot table than a 7-foot table, because you get a lot less congestion, a lot better spreads. And so that was always how I felt about it, was like, oh, big table 8-ball is really easy. And as long as you're playing with soft pockets and, template racks, or if the balls are breaking good, then yeah, 8-ball on a big table can be easy because of the lack of congestion. But then it can go the other way, which is I've played on some really, really tight 9-foot tables where it's really demanding. And all of a sudden it becomes so hard to pocket balls that, not to say that I shouldn't, let me clarify, it's not that hard to pocket a ball, but it puts so much pressure on every shot that all of a sudden it can go full circle, and it can become harder to play on a 9-foot table with real snug pockets, because you go into a breakout and you end up like a little bit over a ball with an off angle, and all of a sudden you just can't make everything you shoot at anymore. And it makes the game a lot harder. So whereas on a bar table, yeah, you've got congestion, but at least you're going to make everything you shoot at on a 7-foot valley or something like that. So it's like it goes like loose pocketed 9-foot table is the easiest. Bar tables in the middle, and then like a tight pocketed 9-foot table can actually be tougher. So my point is, I understand what it's like to try to be dealing with clusters and problems and congestion while still knowing that every shot is tough. And I can only see that would, now you've got the worst of both worlds. You got the tight pockets and the congestion. I can see how challenging that could be.
It is. It's a challenging game. It's all. I mean, it's even more about cue ball control than any of the other games, because even if you get out of line on a bar box or on a 9-foot table, you've always got the option to smash one round 4 rails or whatever and get back in line. You can't do that on these tables. You just cannot get that kind of action out of the cue ball. You can't rescue yourself. You can't hit. You can't force balls into the pockets. They will just get spat out. So you really are very much dependent on your cue ball control with this game. And the top guys that have a good cue ball, they make it look very, very easy. And then when you try and play it yourself, you realize if you're just 1 inch out of line, you're dead. You can't do anything.
The other thing I really struggle with those tables is the side pockets. The same way kind of when you're shooting down the rail on one of those the marble tables is you're on a 9-foot table, I should say. You're kind of conditioned to play the pocket, the rail going into the pocket, and the side pockets. You kind of do the same thing. I mean, a lot of the times when I'm aiming, especially if it's a thinner angle into the side pocket, I'm actually aiming for the point, and it's a very how do I put this? It's a very concrete thing to aim at, because you can see it. It's right there. But on those marble tables, like, you're not aiming for the point. If you hit the point, you miss. You're actually aiming for the ledge of the table, is what I've gathered. And Jim, you can tell me if I'm wrong here, but it's really hard to aim at something that you can't see. You're aiming at a ledge that you know is there, but you can't see it being there. It's very easy to see a point. It's very hard to see a ledge.
You got to aim at the black bits. Aim at the black bits. Aim at the rubber. If you're not aiming at the rubber, well, the back of the pocket is generally a black piece of rubber. If you're not aiming at the black piece of rubber, you're not making it. Doesn't matter what pocket you're playing it into.
I found that, like, especially on thinner angles, like those pros that, like, when I watch them play, like, they hit those, they hit that ledge and the ball just like falls in, and it's like, it's always the right speed, and it's like, and I messed around with it a little bit, and I played it. The game we were playing Scotch doubles 2 years ago. What was it? 5 years ago? The first year that we met, Jim. And we were doing the Scotch doubles with Darren Appleton and Chris Melling were there, and we were all playing like Scotch doubles. and I missed a ball into the side pocket, hitting it exactly how I wanted to. And I kind of went over on a side table. I'm like, why did I miss that ball? And I kept on hitting it. And that's when I kind of realized you have to aim at a shelf, and the shelf is like super goofy. It's just so tough.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just glad that Jim, I'm just glad that you're competing. I can't tell you enough. I think you're a great guy, but I love the way you play pool, and you're just a hell of a player. And, obviously we live in a world that's raining with, 20-year-olds from different, all over that play even better. I can accept that.
Flag for the old guys.
No, it's just, but that doesn't mean that I really think that you've got just a beautiful, beautiful world-class artistic game of pool. You've got finesse, you've got power, you've got strategy, you've got rhythm. And I've enjoyed, I'm a big fan of yours. And so I'm glad to see you get to some tournaments. That's all.
I appreciate that. Thanks a lot, man. Appreciate
Jim.
That. See, Nate, there is, see, some people can be nice, Nate.
I think you suck.
Everybody's like you.
I think you suck.
All the guys in the chat. Raymond is in the chat. Good to see you. Okay.
Yeah. Hello, Crypto, Fred, Seth, Neil, Trevor, Raymond. Thank you guys for tuning in.
What's Raymond put there? Europe or a bunch of Raymond. Wow. It's obviously getting close to Moscone Cup
Jim,
time.
it's been a while. Here you go.
Oh, the cat's ass. There we go. Nice. Thank you.
I thought you'd miss it, buddy. Oh, that's funny. Anyways. All right. So now that I have company, let's jump into the Puerto Rico Open. I guess let's start with the team event, because that seemed to be the most exciting. What do you guys think of this format for it?
I'll tell you what, I've been very focused on a few other things, and I was very minimal updates that I even see. I didn't follow it that closely, so I'll have to follow your guys' lead.
Well, I guess the format, I guess, is they do races to 4. It's combinations of singles and Scotch doubles. And I mean, I guess I'm struggling to see a lot of how do I put this? I'm struggling to see a lot of rhythm to how it's actually doing. For example, like the South Korea and Team Poland match. Olivia played the first match, Wojtek played the second match, and then Daniel Marcial played the third, fourth, and would have played the fifth match. So that seems kind of goofy to me, according to the schedule anyway. So that, I mean...
Yeah, okay, but I think the Scotch doubles, there's only one name from each team in the Scotch doubles when they fill it out. One of those matches is Scotch doubles. It's just you don't see both names on it, I think.
Got it. Was it just to be clear, was it like 32 countries in a double elimination bracket, and then each match was 2 out of 3, or like 2 sets with a shootout? What was the overall?
They played groups first, and then they had to qualify from a round robin group, and then you got through to the last 8, I think.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah,
but the format. I mean, people complain about the format, races to 4 and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I don't. It'll suit some players more than it'll suit others. But if a tournament organizer turns and says, "This is a tournament, this is the format, and the winner will be the best team who played in this format," then that's just the format. Make it race to 100 or make it a race to 3. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you have a winner and you have a load of people that didn't win. And I mean, I see that. I mean, Darren Appleton was. He doesn't like the shot clock and the shootout. I can understand that. In a shootout, when you're shooting for your life, I don't think there should be a shot clock in a shootout. I mean, how much time can it take, and how much can it be delayed with a? I mean, certainly not 30 seconds. Turn around and say, listen, you've got a minute or a minute and a half to play your shot to set yourself up. That's fine. But I think a shootout shot clock is going a bit too far kind of thing. But the rest of it, that's the format. Go and play it. Get off to a good start. If you don't, you're going to get beat. Next one's on, and the winner will be the winner at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree. I think it's not like they didn't know the format coming in and that it's sprung on them, right? So if you're and especially if it's coming from Darren, because he lobbied for like months trying to get a team together for this, which is kind of funny. But I mean, it is what it is, right? It's the format is the format, and you can't say it's not exciting. I mean, it's at least from the viewer's perspective, and I think it adds a level of pressure to the players that they don't get anywhere else. I mean, it's the shootout. It's like you're playing a hill game 4 times over, sometimes more, right? If it goes to extra shots like the finals did. I don't think that you can have that level of excitement in any other sort of matchroom format. Now, I'm not saying that this is a better format, but I'm only talking specifically to the shootout and how it actually is pretty. I mean, I found myself. I watched the. I ended up watching the final shootout back again later on, and I found my heart rate going up, even though I already knew what was going to happen. I know who's making the shots, I know who's missing the shots, and I know what the final score is. And I still, as I'm watching this, knowing what's happening, because I've already watched it once, my heart rate is still going up as I'm watching this. I mean, I think that's unique to this style of format.
So let me ask you this: if you had to be in a shootout, would you prefer to go first or second if you got the choice?
Always first. Always
Jim?
first. I want to be putting the pressure on my opponent. The way I look at it is, if you're going first, you can dictate the pressure that happens from the set. So if you miss yours, obviously that's your choice. Well, it's not your choice, but I mean that's your option. But if you make that first ball, you're the one applying the pressure. You have the opportunity to apply the pressure to your opponent. If you go second, you're having the pressure applied to you. And I to be honest with you, I'd rather not know what my opponent's going to do. It shouldn't matter, right? But I find that you can't help. We're human, right? We can't help but like give ourselves the opportunity to know what's happening. And if I know that my opponent just missed the opening shot against me and I'm going second, you just can't say that you're going to have the same level of pressure and the same level of focus on your shot when you know that there's no repercussion for missing it from there.
They should have people do the shootout on different tables and not know what their opponent scored. That'd be anyway. I'm just forget it.
Play it on the snooker tables where they have that big the big divider right in between the two tables.
That's right. It just feel like a mystery. They just keep shooting until sudden death format. Nobody knows. Anyway,
you have to tell the crowd to shut up.
yeah, that's true. Anyway, no, that's cool.
Cool. Jim, did you want to take on that question?
What was the question? What about going first or second?
Yeah.
I mean, if you lose the toss, then your opponent decides. But if I'm given the option, then I'll go first, because I think it sends a message to your opponent that you're ready for it and you're not scared and you're not going to react to what they're doing. You're just going to do your own thing. I think by saying you're going first, then you're not interested in what they're doing. I'm going to go down and I'm going to shoot my shot, and that's it. Yeah. I don't want to be reacting to what my opponent does.
Yeah. So I guess we didn't talk about who won. I guess I don't think I did. Anyways, Team Germany wins in a shootout. Not only shootout, a sudden death shootout, where Pia Filler finishes the final pot, I guess, for the win. I don't know. It was a pretty great match from start to finish. Pia loses 0-4 to Chow, and then Moritz loses 4-3 to Kun Lin Wu, and then Joshua Filler and Pia Filler win 4-3 to stay alive on the hill to Chang Jung Lin and Chow, and then Josh Filler beats Chang Jung Lin, which we'll talk about a little bit more later, and then it goes to the shootout, which Germany wins. Yeah, which Germany wins 5-4. So, I don't know. I guess one thing I would like to see on this format, I guess going back to this because I just remembered this. Like in the singles, once you get to the certain part of the event, they do the race to 3 in the finals, and if it gets to 3-3, that's when you do the shootout. And I like that little addition. I think that could be added to the team event too. But like Mosconi Cup opening match style, where each player plays their opponent. What would you think about that? So like Joshua Filler would play Chang Jung Lin. The winner of that gets 1 point. Then it goes on to, I guess you kind of decide. But the women would always play the women, I guess, because that's kind of how this format is. The captain, maybe whoever wins the flip gets to choose who plays first. And if Germany would have picked Pia Filler, then she would have had to play against Chow. And then Taipei would have chose the next match, which would be probably, I don't know, I guess Chang Jung Lin and Joshua Filler. And then last would then be Moritz Neuhausen versus Wu Kun Lin. And then it just keeps going through until either one player gets to 4 or it gets to 3-3. And then the shootout happens. What would you think about that? Don't care?
No.
Format is the format.
Yeah, I think that makes sense what you're saying. I don't really know that this is one of those things where sometimes they have reasoning that's not immediately obvious to me as far as, why they make some of the choices they make. What you just described makes a lot of sense, but in the end, I don't know. To me, it's weird. Like, to me, it's, one-on-one matches make sense. And so once you get into kind of like team rosters with doubles and different weird mixes, it's kind of like, it's all kind of, I'm not saying it's a circus show, but like, it's all kind of off the rails as far as it's not traditional. It's not a traditional, heads up match. So however the format is, it's going to be a little bit weird, but what you just said makes sense. Like, that's how they do it in a lot of like league play and stuff like that. And, but as long as it, if the players enjoy it, it works for the fans, I guess that's what counts.
Sure. Anything you want to expand upon, Jim, or just move on?
I mean, I've got nothing against. I mean, the format's a format. Go and play it. Simple as that, and be better than the other guys, and you'll win the tournament. Is there a perfect format for this kind of thing? There's no perfect format for anything because, I mean, something we discussed before we came on. There's so many people that have access to social media and access to watching these matches that you're still going to get a huge amount of people that doesn't matter what the format is, they're going to think it's rubbish and they're going to tell everyone it's rubbish. And so it was just do the format that you think is the best, and the players come and they play and see who wins. Simple as that.
Sure. All right. Well, that concludes this. This was actually a world championship too. So I guess Joshua Filler adds a world championship to his resume. Moritz Neuhausen adds a world championship to his resume. I believe that's Moritz's second, maybe third world championship. I think it's his third world championship.
And from the belt, you're counting juniors and stuff like that. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess you have to, right?
No.
I mean, maybe you don't count it if that's the only world championship that you have. But now that Moritz has another one, although this is, I mean, I guess it's a world championship, so you can't take it away from him. And then Pia, this is her first world championship, I believe. I don't think she got any as a junior. I'm pretty sure she didn't. So yeah, I guess let's move on to the what is this? What is the beer? This Modelo Light Puerto Rico 10-ball open for the men and the women. So the men was won by Conrad Juszczyszyn over Roland Garcia. Bit of a goofy finals there, maybe, but obviously both are phenomenal players. You wouldn't pick either one of them to make the finals, but you're not necessarily surprised that they do get there.
Konrad does that at least once a year, at least once or twice a year. Yeah. Konrad just beasts a tournament, like just destroys people, and he gets into that rhythm and that speed where just nobody can keep up with him. He has that gear, and it comes out maybe once or twice a year, and you just think if you could do that every single
week,
or at least once a month. I mean, and it's generally 10-ball.
Yeah.
Well, I can speak to that. I remember a couple of years ago at the U.S. Open, he beat me 11-1 in 3 innings. I had 2 innings, and he ran. I mean, this is when they were racking the one on the spot with the template. To be fair, but he opened up with 4. I got a shot. He scratched on the break, and I actually ran a rack and played a safety. I thought was a good save. He made some jump shot and ran 6 racks to go up 10-1 on his second turn. Then he missed the ball on the last rack and hooked me, and I kicked it, hit it, and left the shot. He ran out 11-1. I got 2 turns of the table, and I'm telling you, it was like watching like one of those guys playing a video game, like speed running a video game. It looked like, I mean, it was like one of the highest gears I've ever seen. So it was. I've been waiting for him to break through. That's all. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he has that gear.
Well, talking about dominating, I mean, going through his matches, he played the opening match against Jason Cruz, a local Puerto Rican player, wins 4-0, 4-2. His next match he plays against, let's see here, Alex Pagulayan, loses 2-1. So he loses 4-3, 3-4, and then loses 3-2. So I guess that almost went to a shootout. And then he plays, let's see here, Moritz Neuhausen, wins 2-0 in sets and 4-1, 4-0. Then he plays Jason Cruz again, ironically. Oh, no, never mind. I just went the wrong way. Then he plays Sullivan Clark, wins 2-0 in sets, 4-1, 4-2. Plays Hayato Hijikata, Japanese player, wins 4-1, 4-3, 2-0 in sets. Then he wins 2-0 in sets over Hajun Kwan, 2-0 in sets over Aloysius Yap, and then 2-0 in the finals.
Jeez.
So he loses to Alex Pagulayan and then doesn't drop a single set the rest of the tournament. That's
in a race to 4. Yeah. So he basically won like what? How many is that in a row? Like 16 races to 4 in a row or something?
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
He beats Roland Garcia 4-2, 4-1 in the finals. Beats Aloysius Yap 4-3, 4-1, and he was down 3-0 in that first set. I watched that set from start to finish. He was down 3-0, and Aloysius looks like he was about to steamroll him, just like he's been steamrolling just about everybody for the last 3 months. Misses one ball, and Konrad just takes the set over. I mean, yeah, a great tournament for him. Love to see it. Obviously, I'm quite. Jim likes to pick on me. I love all the Polish players. They're just nice people and fierce competitors.
Yep. Yeah, but
right.
I mean, brilliant result for him, and yeah, I'm not surprised whatsoever when he gets rolling, and that kind of format, it suits him. He's a fast starter. He gets straight into stroke. He doesn't need time. He's not a diesel. As soon as he's on the table, he's on, and if he is on and he feels it himself, he can put racks together very, very, very quickly. And in that format, that's exactly what you need to do.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, so let's head over to the ladies' side of things. Kelly Fischer adds another title to her. I think she's got a few of them in her career, one or two good wins at this point.
Couple, yeah.
Beats Wei Su Chen in the finals. Yasmin Ocean and Chow are your semifinalists. And it's, we had talked a lot about Kelly Fischer, especially towards the end of COVID, where, what is she going to look like once the Asian ladies come back? And really, it's not just Europeans and Americans. Is her dominance going to continue? And I mean, she had like a little cold stretch there where she didn't win an event for about 3 months, and now she's back to basically winning everything again. So, I kind of wish I had, Mike on for this one, because he's made the argument and he still holds fast to it that Alison Fischer was the better of the two of them. And while I don't know that I necessarily disagree with that, I would like to ask him the question of how long is that going to last if Kelly continues to win like this? Is there anything that Kelly could do to surpass Alison in his mind? I think that'd be an interesting question. I don't know.
Yeah,
Demetrius, you watched a lot of 90s pool. Jim, you did. Obviously, you know both of them quite well.
Well, I think that there's a big difference in that Kelly has been playing against higher levels of competition. And so, she's been, not only are the international women playing much better today than they were 3 years ago, it's not even close in terms of just the amount of competition and the levels of competition. But Kelly's also played in a lot of the open events, the Matchroom events that are open. She's played, she was in the virtual tournaments you put on. And I remember when when Matchroom had that tournament format that had like the groups, the flights where the one person would try to qualify and then they had that weird rotation. I forget what that thing's called. But anyway, she was playing in that. And
the Premier League pool.
What is that called?
Premier League pool.
Yeah. So the point is she's competing against top women. She's competing against top men. She's competing in all the biggest tournaments in the world. And at the highest levels of competition. And she's competing regularly against players better than Alison got to really compete against. So, if we want to play the game, I think that it would be unlikely in my mind that Kelly's not playing better than Alison was. But to be fair, if Alison was playing against Alvin Ocean and top, Mario He, she might have been pushed to a higher level too. It's just that you can only get pushed so far by your competition. And Alison got to the top of the heap without necessarily having to go further than she did. So she got to the top of the heap. She played great. She dominated women's pool, but now women's pool is just better, and Kelly's dominating that.
I mean, it's the same as turning around and saying, who's the better player, Earl Strickland or Joshua Filler? It's a very difficult question to answer because they're from different eras as well. In my
Alison
opinion,
and Kelly aren't.
I'm sorry?
Alison and Kelly aren't from different eras.
Oh, well, no. When Alison was in her prime, Kelly wasn't there.
Correct, but there was enough that overlapped. Like Josh and Earl, nothing overlapped. You could say
Yeah,
Earl can still play now. Whatever.
But, I mean, again, it's all opinions, and we talk about who's the greatest pool player of all time. Now, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, I mean, everyone says the greatest pool player of all time. We talk about Strickland, we talk about Siegel, we talk about Efren Reyes. In my opinion, the greatest pool player of all time is Joshua Filler, because he's played pool at a level that nobody has ever played pool at. In my opinion,
pushing it forward,
and he's still pushing forward. I've seen him play matches that nobody has ever been able to. Nobody has done before. That, for me, that makes him the greatest player to ever play the game, because nobody in the history of pool is able to match what Joshua Filler can do when he's playing his absolute A game. But we don't discuss Joshua Filler as the greatest of all time because there's more factors that go into it.
He's 24 years old, right? I mean.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if he has played at a level that nobody else has ever played at. Does that not make him the greatest to ever play the game?
No.
It's almost like it's like when you have chess. If you have the highest ELO rating of all time, some 17-year-old could come along and hit some peak rating. Or Magnus could be the first one to hit 2850 or something, and it's like the highest rating of all time. He may not have even won a world championship yet, but he's already the highest rated player of all time. So that doesn't necessarily mean you put him as the GOAT. But if you want to talk about who's played the highest technical level of chess of all time, he's the first guy to get a rating over 2850 or whatever. So it's like the same thing with Filler. It's like you can't necessarily say he's the GOAT yet. You can talk about duration of career and level of competition, how well they dominated over their peers. And then that goes into questions about the format, and how if the format is set to be super short sets, you might not see the same level of domination possible compared to when Willie Mosconi was playing blocks of 7,500 points a straight pool. But in the end, if what you just want to talk about is the highest level of pool being played, I don't think there's any question that Filler, and I'm interested to hear that it's Filler for you. I've always kind of thought that Federer was also playing really, really strong, but I consider those two guys like the highest level pool players that have ever lived.
Well, see, and this is it. And Hillbilly Island.
Let me ask you this, Jim.
Says Filler will never win 5 U.S. Opens. Again, that's not what
Nobody
I'm saying.
will ever win 5 U.S. Opens again.
Nobody will ever win 5 U.S. Opens because you don't get to rack your own anymore. Well, that's why nobody will win 5 U.S. Opens anymore.
That plus the level of competition now.
Go and ask Shane how he won 5 U.S. Opens.
Yeah. No, that is true. That is true. But also the level of competition that's like the U.S. Open was always a global tournament-ish. But now it was always a U.S.-based competition that had international players. Now it's an international tournament that has U.S. players. And don't give me all the 500 levels that play in it, and that's the reason why we have 128 USA players. There are 4 USA players that are an actual threat to win that tournament, and that's being generous. It's not a U.S. Open. It's not a U.S. event that international players play in. It's an international event that U.S. players play in. And it never was that in the 90s and in the early 2000s.
You know what? I looked back, Nate. I looked back at 2005. That was my first U.S. Open. And I was just curious because I'm like, I knew that the tournament got tougher, but I couldn't really remember and quantify. If you go and it's on AZ Billiards, Money List, whatever, you can go back to the 2005 U.S. Open and look at the top 64 finishers, and you'll find like 50 American flags. Right now,
you're not going to have 50 U.S. flags in the last. You're not going to have 50 U.S. flags in the last 10 years combined.
Yeah. You're not going to see. You might see. You might not see 5 in the final 64, and that's a measurement of how much different the competition has gotten. So not only Jim brings up a great point with the racking format, but I'll tell you what else is that if Filler got to play against the 2005 field year after year after year, he might win 5. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, so the only thing that I would say with the Joshua Filler thing, if you're going to say he's reached higher highs than anybody else has ever reached, you're basing that argument at least partially off of Fargo rate, which has existed since exactly 2013, 2014.
No, I think Jim's basing it off the fact that he's
Fargo rate. I've watched him play consistent pool at a level that nobody else has ever played at.
I don't necessarily.
I'm not talking about how many tournaments you're winning and how much. He has a level. Pool is all about levels. Pool is all about levels, and he is in a level band that nobody else is in. And
so let me ask you this question. Let me ask you this question: Has Joshua, and this is just a discussion we're having because I think it's interesting discussion. Have you ever seen Joshua Filler dominate for a longer stretch than what FSR did, starting at the U.S. Open 2 years ago? And finishing
Irrelevant.
Why?
That's not what I'm saying. Again, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying he can play the game. He can play the game at a level that nobody else can play it at. And I'm not talking about, it doesn't matter if it's a period of time that he's doing it over, or if it's dominating, or if it's winning trophies. He can play the game. It's like running the 100 meters.
I'm not arguing with what you're saying. I know what you're saying.
It's like running the 100 meters, and you hold the world record, but you still but the other 10 races in the year you lose, but you win one race and you hold the world record. You have done it quicker than anybody else in the whole of history has done it. That's what Filler does. In my opinion, Filler is like the world record holder at 100 meters, but he doesn't win all the time. But he's still done it quicker than anybody else in history has ever done. And that is what I'm talking about, Filler.
Yeah, it would be like if somebody ran 1,000 balls in street pool, they might not win every tournament. They might not, they might not dominate, whatever. But that doesn't mean that they can't, that their street pool performance high watermark is like higher than it's ever been. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So what you're saying is you're not saying that Joshua Filler is the greatest of all time. You're saying Joshua Filler has been the best.
Game at a level no one else has.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I can't argue with that. Honestly,
again, just to answer Hillbilly, it's not you I'm attacking. You just seem to be doing most of the stuff. Why won't he gamble? It's not him that won't gamble. Why will nobody gamble? Why will nobody call him out? Is the question you should be asking yourself.
I mean, the only person that does is Tony, and it's got to be one pocket.
Yeah. Exactly.
I think most of the European
is the only guy that would play Filler at any game, and it has to be one pocket. Nobody else will go near him. So it's not him that won't gamble. Nobody will call him out. He's ready. He'll play anybody.
Well, no. There was a stretch where Shane wanted to play him 10 ball, and Josh wouldn't play. But I just don't think Josh is interested in gambling. I think when we look back at Josh when he was actually gambling, he played that big set against James Aranis, and he played that big set against Tony, and I think those were like 3 weeks apart. And if you look back at that matchup, that was right during COVID where you can't go anywhere. I just don't think I don't think Josh is interested in the money side of things as much as because he skipped out on the Hanoi Open. He skips out on a lot of events. He basically picks and chooses his events that he goes to every year. And I have to assume that it's because he's not interested in chasing around a paycheck. He's interested in adding titles to his resume. Mm-hmm. It doesn't seem like he's driven by money. It seems like he's driven by accomplishments. And if you're,
he's also not refusing. He's not refusing because he's not getting challenged. Nobody's asking him.
Well, nobody's getting challenged, to be fair, though. There's no events that are happening. The only event that's happening in this year, basically, that I can think of is, and I'm sure I'm missing some, but Reinhold and Oscar are about to play a big set. Can you guys name a single other big marquee gambling event that's happened this year?
There's too many events. There's no time in the calendar for them to do it.
You should make sure that Oscar has the money frozen up before they play. Nothing.
Too soon.
I heard that Johnny Archer's putting the money up for him.
Come on. I was trying to be a little bit more nothing.
Anyways. So no, but for the most part, gambling is a US thing, and it's not even a US thing against the top, amongst the top players. It's a gambling thing about amongst the second tier type of players. The Chip Comptons and the Tony Chohans and the Shane McMahons, players like that can't make a living strictly by tournament play, at least not efficiently. It's never been a thing with Shane. Shane plays when he plays, but he's never really been interested in gambling. After we saw this in the 60-minute documentary, he's never been interested in gambling, and the only way he's really interested in gambling is if it is in a tournament style format where you play a race to X over 3 days and whatever that is.
Well,
Sky hasn't played a gamble. Go ahead.
Yeah, back in 2007 to 2011, Shane was gambling all the time. He was, of course, with Alex. Him and Alex would play every chance they get, but he would play Hennessy and he would play all these guys and give up spots, and he was always in action. I think people didn't want to play him anymore. Is kind of what happened. So yeah.
But but the European players, it's just not in their makeup. It's not something they grew up with. It's not something that was part of their. That's part of growing their career. They just don't do it. They all get told as they're coming through, you've got to go to the Philippines and do your Filipino tour. You've got to go to the USA and do your US tour and get yourself into action. But then that's it. Once they've done it, it's not something they're really interested in doing in general. And you have some players that will,
Well, it makes sense because in the US, in the 60s, 70s, and even a little bit in the 80s, there was people that it was like back in the 60s and 70s, there was road players. There was a lot of dead money in pool halls after the Hustler came out. The cost of travel was really, really cheap, gas and hotels. And there was a lot of dead money in the pool rooms. And road players could run around the road and pick up money at pool rooms and make a living just kind of running the roads and gambling. And then they would hustle up bankrolls and go into a big city and match up with a champion. And then they bet it all and win or lose and keep going and do it again. It was just like this road gambling. So what happened was all the players in the 80s and 90s and even 2000s, they grew up with like the role models was kind of like these gunslingers that would sling from town to town and just put up the money and see who's best. And that was kind of like, that was the romantic idea of what it meant to be a pool player, was to be like a gunslinger. And so that's a kind of a hangover from that era. Well, I don't think that was really ever the scene in Europe. Was that ever? Did you guys have like a big scene where in the 70s there was road players playing pool? So I just think that was a U.S. thing, and so the U.S. players grew up where the players that they looked up to used to be road players and came and used to be big gamblers, and so it's now we're seeing that evolve little bit by little bit. It's kind of faded away a little bit, and so now today's players are more homogenized. But I think that's why the U.S. has always kind of had that. Like when Shane came on the scene, he was winning tournaments, but he was also like trying to establish that he could get in the ring and get down for the cash and all that stuff. So,
but it's also that whole lifestyle, that whole pool lifestyle is died off because it's been almost impossible to do that now because of social media.
Everybody knows everybody.
People has. You can't just go into a pool room and blast somebody and then the next night go the one round the corner and nobody know who you are. Yeah. Everybody knows all your matches are streamed. As soon as you win a match against a certain level of player, your action is dead below that.
That hotels are $200 a night, gas is expensive, and that there's not as much dead money in the pool halls and people don't lose as much as they. So yeah.
Well, and then it doesn't help that you can literally grab your phone and say, "Hey, what's your name? Jim Telfer? Okay, Fargo rate 710. All right, yeah, I'm not playing you."
That's not as.
I mean, right? I mean, you got to go and give fake names at that point in time, and that doesn't really work long term. It might work once or twice at a pool room, but I don't know how many times I've gone to a pool room. With how much I travel. Generally speaking, I try to go to a pool room and wherever I'm going, just to kind of get the local flair, the local flavor of, how pool is played there. And I don't know how many times I've been like, I've gone to Florida and I hit balls on a table and somebody comes up and says, "Hey, you want to gamble?" Or, "Okay, what's your name?" Fargo rate. "Oh, you're a 682. All right, I'm not playing you. I'm going to go, never mind." Or what are you going to spot me? Right. What are you going to give me? You going to, do I get the breaks in the 6 out or something? I mean, it's too easy to find out who people are. Now I could lie about my name, obviously, but I mean, I'm recognizable enough and I have enough of a name that if I go around the country lying about my name, it's probably not going to turn into good PR for me in the show, right?
Yeah, not worth it.
No, not when I don't like gambling anyway. So, yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I guess. What do we think? We're going to wrap up our discussion.
So Kelly Fischer is a hell of a player, I think, is what we decided.
Well, this is kind of the discussion that I wanted. Well, this is kind of the discussion I wanted to have with that, where like I don't know if you pay attention to the NBA or anything like that, Jim, basketball, and I don't even think you do either, Demetrius. But it's, to me, this conversation is coming down to the MJ versus LeBron debate, where LeBron is so freaking good still in his 21st season that it gets to the point where the people are starting to use the argument now, well, maybe LeBron never reached the height that Michael Jordan did, but because his duration of career was so long and so dominant for that duration, it's hard not to give him the nod. And I feel like I wanted to have this discussion with Panozzo just to basically say, like, all right, well, if Kelly is still winning at this level, and it's hard to say because actually Allison is winning a decent amount of events too, so maybe that's the argument that he gives back. But it's at what point in time does the duration, even if Kelly never reached the high that Allison did, at what point in time do you give longevity a nod on, I guess, the GOAT debate?
Here's my problem is I think that when it comes to comparing players, you've got like, you can talk longevity, you can talk highest gear, you can talk titles, you can talk about domination over their peers, and you can talk about their actual technical level of play. And then you can talk about adjusting it for equipment and competition levels over the years and formats and all this stuff. And there's so many different ways you can weight those things that in the end, you could just decide who you want to win your little comparison and then weight the things that they're strong in until they win. It's almost like if you compare two pieces of art and you're like, well, which piece of art is the better piece of art? It's like, well, if you decide you want that one to win, you could just find reasons. It's like, I think comparing competitors at some point, especially across eras, when it's almost like very, very, very subjective. And I think that people that look at it like there's some clear-cut scientific formula to figure out who's better because they want to know who's best. It's like, it just doesn't really lend itself to that, man. There's always going to be room for interpretation. And if there wasn't, there wouldn't be such a wide, diversity of opinion.
Yeah,
exactly. And it depends what your question is. If you're asking who was the better player, that's a different question from who was the greatest player, Because, again, the better player has got nothing to do with how long you were playing for.
The best players,
was your top game better than her top game at any stage in their career? Then you were a better pool player.
The best player is Joshua Fillert. The greatest player is, I don't know, whoever. I guess for me,
we have this conversation in 20 years. There will not be, in my opinion, unless there will be a group again. And it's all about, if you're in the conversation, then you're happy, and there will be another group of 3 players.
Yeah. Nobody talks about Oscar Robertson anymore.
It won't be. Efren Earl will not be in that group of players that are talked about in 20 years' time as the greatest to ever play the game.
Yep. We'll have forgotten about him, just like we've forgotten about.
Well, no, we won't have forgotten
about Will Chamberlain, Oscar Robertson.
No, Penoza will still be there representing.
Penoza. That's true. Penoza will still talk.
Let me tell you about Luther Lassiter. No, that's awesome. All right. Okay. Well, I want to have a spicy conversation because I think it's just fun. But before we do that, so we got a great conversation coming at the end of this break, but we're going to do a little ad break because we got to keep those sponsors happy. So I want to give a shout out quick to Jacoby Custom Cues.
Sponsoring me.
That's because nobody likes you, Jim. Jacoby Custom Cues. Check out this sweet ad. Doesn't that just relax you so well? So great.
I love the comment though. It's great. Anyway, no, that's cool, man. I appreciate their sponsorship. Not only do they make great cues, but they support pool. So there you go.
Yep. The rest of the sponsors we have.
The rest of the sponsors down there.
All of the other sponsors. Horo Tips, Onboard Sportswear, Digital Pool, Salado, Billiards Digest, Insight Performance Coaching. And starting next week, we are actually going to be adding 2 more full-time, well, not full-time sponsors. 1 full-time sponsor in Littman Lights. And Michael was in here earlier, said hi. So if you're still here, what's going on? I'm actually replacing the cloth on my table right now. So I haven't been able to take a picture and fully announce it properly. But Littman Lights, thank you so much for your sponsorship. And we have a new sponsor, an outside industry sponsor that's going to be starting next week, which is The great
Rolex.
sponsor. Magic Mind. It is a magic mushroom drink. So we're going to be talking about that.
So do you take that before you shave yourself with the Manscaped, or
yeah, this is gonna be our next Manscaped ad. No, Magic Mind. No, actually, like all joking aside, like I'm actually kind of interested about this because it's like a little energy shot. It's like a 2-ounce energy shot, but it's made with all natural ingredients. It's like a bunch of like tree roots and some mushrooms, and I'm gotta put some research into this, but it's an all natural energy drink, so you don't get the jitteriness of coffee or anything like that. So I'm pretty excited for that. So that's going to start next week. We're going to be telling you all about that a little bit more. But Magic Mind is coming on board. We always love outside money in the industry. We don't have enough of it, and we need to get some more.
I'm open-minded. If you need a guinea pig, Magic Mind, I'll tell you.
Yeah, well,
I'm not taking it because I get random drug tests at work. But we had a similar thing over here in Europe. I don't know if it made it to the States or not. A few years ago, called Checkio, and this was supposed to be this all-natural drink that would help you with your concentration. And all the players were drinking this. It was disgusting. It was horrible. And drinking this drink during their matches and stuff like that. But that quickly disappeared. So let's hope that Magic Mind is a little bit of a better form of whatever. Yeah.
I don't know. I'll know more next week when I get all the proper stuff. So.
If Nate turns up on the show next week and all his hair's falling out and stuff.
No, stop it. Stop it, you. All right. We also want to give a shout out to our Patreons that allow us to continue to do this. You know who you are, but if you don't know who you are, then you are
Hillbilly. It's bring your own. Bring your own
shrooms.
All right, we got Ben Young, Double Dave Q's, Dave Wiersma. We got Mo Bashir, Bill Pelham, Chris Henry, and Cody Wedig, and Ed Ladawi. So thank you all for supporting the podcast. Oh, and Matt Poland too. Sorry, missed you. Thank you all for supporting us, and let's move on to our spicy topic, which is not racist, I don't think. I don't think this is racist. How can it be racist? I think it's funny. So backstory, and I don't know that this is true, but pre-Facebook, obviously, I don't think that anybody got worked up over little things. Somebody saw something on ESPN, maybe, and Demetrius, you've been on AZ Billiards a heck of a lot longer than I have. In fact, I really don't even use it all that much. Was the outrage machine ever there in, let's say, mass quantities?
Not like today. Not like today.
Yeah. So, and this is kind of the discussion I want to have is whenever something controversial, quote unquote controversial, happens on Facebook or in a match or in a tournament somewhere, Facebook just blows up like for 2 days, and there's always so many people that argue. I don't even understand how some of these things can be argued both ways, but they are. And the latest one is, of course, the Chang Jung-Lin foul, where he sets the cue ball down on the table, moves it up a little bit with his shaft. It gets slowing down, and he wants it to go a little bit farther, so he pokes it with his tip forward. I guess before we even jump into this, Jim, foul or not foul?
Foul.
Demetrius, foul or not foul?
Yeah, it's a foul. I'm surprised that a top player would. I mean, I remember from at the age of 13, I remember being, trained to always maneuver the cue ball with the side of my shaft because it could be called a foul. And I don't know. I guess maybe that's just not how they do it in China. And, yeah.
So this is the thing, right? There's no question it's a foul. Now, you can argue whether or not you want to be a nit about calling it, but the player never called it. John Lehman called it. And John Lehman is paid to follow the rule book, not is it really a foul if he wasn't trying to shoot, right? His job is to follow the rule book. Everyone knows it's a foul. Now, you can say it's a nit for doing it, but it's not like Joshua Filler's over, and Joshua Filler was very happy to take the foul, don't get me wrong. But it doesn't really matter whether or not it was a foul because it was. So then the question becomes, the only thing that you can discuss is, should he have taken it? Well, no, he should have given it back to him because he knows he wasn't trying to shoot that shot. Why is Facebook so stupid? Why does everybody have to take a side and just argue it to death's end, even though they're wrong and they have to be wrong and they have to know that they're wrong. And the only way that they can even potentially make an argument on these things is by saying, well, sportsmanship. Anytime I hear sportsmanship start from like your argument, I just instantly tune it out. It's just so dumb from there. Why does everything have to be so dumb? Why can't we just accept that the rules are the rules and you have to play it that way?
Yeah, it would be like if the referee looked at him when he was getting ready to shoot the 9 and said, that's good. It's like, what is...
Yeah, I don't know. Jim, what do you think?
Right, okay, well, first of all, it's a foul. So the referee has made the right call. Now, let's look at it in another sport. Pool is now a professional sport, yeah? We want it to be a professional sport. Now, have you ever seen in another sport, any other sport, the referee give a penalty, whatever, playing football, or a penalty playing soccer, or in any other sport, the referee turn around and call a foul or whatever, and the player who is getting the foul turns around and says, yeah, but he didn't mean that, so it's fine. It never happens. It doesn't happen. It doesn't matter if you mean it or not. A shirt foul, you don't mean to make a shirt foul either, but it's your own stupid fault if you haven't tucked your shirt in and it's hanging on top of a ball, Now, he's made a foul. The referee's called a foul. The rule says it's a foul. Filler, why that anybody suggests that it's unsportsmanship for Filler to take that foul is an idiot. The only thing, sportsmanship is play within the rules and play fairly. That is sportsmanship. Sportsmanship doesn't go as far as do your opponent a favor when he's fucked up. That's
kind of goes to like it kind of goes to like the Shane Van Boning letting
Joey Tate
Joey Tate
it's his responsibility, and Shane just said, okay, fine.
We saw that when that woman player took the balls out of the pocket while the cue ball was still rolling in that 9-ball match. This stuff happens all the time. Yeah,
it's unfortunate that it happens, but it's your own fault. I'm sitting in my seat, and you do that. I haven't made you do that. I haven't done.
And it's not my responsibility to fix your mistake.
I've not done anything that's influenced your decision to make that stupid mistake that you shouldn't be making. It's your own fault. Tough. Yeah, I had it in a match. I played in a match, and my opponent thought that I fouled. So I played my shot, and he didn't realize that, or he got mixed up whether I had the halves or the solids. I played a solid as a safety. He thought I fouled. He came to the table and just picked up the white ball, and everybody that was there saw him going to do it. No. But he picked it up and put it in his hand, and I was playing in a team match. And I thought, oh, what are you doing, you idiot? And it's like, well, that's ball in hand for me. Yep. And I turned around, I was playing a team match, and I turned around to my team and said, oh, what do I do here? And they said, you take the foul. I'm like, all right, I take the foul. And then the other team are going, oh, you can't take that. He's just made a stupid mistake, and that's not right. And I'm like, well, what do you want me to do about it? I mean, he's picked the ball up. Do you want me just to place it back on the table and let him continue when he's made a stupid mistake himself? I didn't do anything wrong. He didn't say, is that a foul? And I said, yes, it is. And then he picked the ball up and went, oh, no, it's not. Ball in hand for me. He made a stupid mistake himself. It's his own fault.
Yeah, there's only one way to do it, and that is that this is the only way it can work. And if people really understood this and thought it through, is the rules have to be enforced consistently, and people have to follow the penalties consistently. And once it kind of comes into like, we're going to have wavy, wishy-washy rules, and sometimes we're going to be more formal, and sometimes we're going to be less formal, and sometimes we're going to penalize, and sometimes we're not. Now there is going to be room for debate about, well, we were playing in a gentlemanly format, and you used a more professional ruling, and that's not cool. So it's like, if you want to minimize, there's always going to be controversy, but if you're going to minimize that controversy, the best way to do it is very, very clear-cut rules that are very consistently enforced, and that's it. And that's the only way to play it. Otherwise, it just gets worse.
But what you will notice, if you go through all the comments on Facebook about this foul and all the reactions that have come out, none of them are from professional pool players. They're all from amateur players who think that who are used to playing in an amateur environment where that's not acceptable behavior as far as they're concerned. You don't do that. You don't call a foul on somebody for doing that, But this is professional pool. This is professional pool. How many of the other professional players have come up and said he shouldn't have taken the foul? Zero.
Right.
This is what professional sport is. You play by the rules. If you don't play by the rule and you make a mistake, whether it's an honest mistake or not, or sorry, but this is a professional sport now, and you're going to get penalized for these mistakes. Simple.
What I would have liked to have seen, or what I wish I knew Chang Jung-Lin a little bit better, or I don't even think he speaks much for English at all. But I wish I knew him a little bit better. I would like to hear what he has to say about it, whether or not he thinks that he should have been called a foul on or not. I have to assume that he watched the video at this point in time, probably a couple times, and it's not close. I mean, he absolutely pushes it forward with his cue, and not only did he do it with this tip, he moved it forward as if it was a shooting motion. I mean, I know
he moved it forward in the line to the ball he was going to be playing as well. It wasn't like, he's actually pushed it towards. I mean, it's obviously he's obviously not playing a shot. I mean, but the rule is not playing a shot. The rule is using the tip of your cue to move the cue ball in a forward motion towards.
Big no.
That's a foul.
But I think that to Nate's point, this was more of an example of a bigger picture, which is how controversial.
We've brought up a lot of them since, right? I mean, we've talked about the Joey tone. We talked about Kristina Zlateva. That's a broader point. So go ahead, Demetrius. Yeah.
So here's what I think, and I've thought a lot about. This has been on my mind lately, and I wanted to kind of run it past you guys, see what you think. Derby last year, we had over 500 we get 500 players, whatever. Last year was the first year I could barely get in. Like the sign up was full. I had to get on a waiting list. Now in 25 years or 30 years, however long they've been running it, you've always been able to show up Thursday night, wait through the line and pay at the door. They've always had room. It's like a bottomless pit of entries. And all of a sudden, nope, sold out, we're full, waiting list. And I was like, wow, it was a major shock to me that I almost got shut out of Derby last year. So I did get signed up this year. Currently for January's Turning Stone, I'm on the waiting list. I'm not in, I'm on the waiting list. I didn't get into the one in August for Turning Stone. And so I've noticed that over the last year or two, US Open, gosh, if you're not refreshing the stream, like at midnight or whatever, it's 8 a.m. or whatever it is, like you don't get in. Yeah. And so I've thought about why this is going on. Like what is going on? And there's also been a big surge with social media pool, even with, my boot camps are going, well, whatever. And I think what I've realized is I'm not sure. I don't really measure the statistics about like how many people play pool worldwide. But here's what my gut is telling me is that if you had a metric to measure, forget about like the serious pool, like the guys that are watching and listening to this podcast, these guys are like serious pool enthusiasts. So you've always had a few professionals and a small circle of like serious pool players. But then the vast, vast majority of the people that played pool were just like recreational players playing in APA leagues that don't really pay any attention to like, the inner circle. And if the metric was this, what percentage of recreational players follow the top players or like watch some YouTube videos on instruction or watch Matchroom or Predator YouTube and know who the world champion is? Like if you went back to 1999, walked into a pool room and asked, your local league guys at a bar who Rafa Reyes was, like nobody would know. But I think today, I think that the percentage of people that have paid attention to like what's going on in pool, because all it takes now that we have YouTube and Facebook, all it takes is one of these recreational players to just one day be like, I wonder what pool looks like at the professional level or what the world champion looks like. And they just type it into a search bar and watch a video. And next thing you know, they're watching Matchroom events and Dr. Dave and Little Chris. So it's like, I think that like for me.
And the Queued Up podcast.
And so for me, it seems like it went from like maybe 5% of recreational players followed to some extent, international pool to maybe now it might be as high as 20, 30, 40, 50%. So what I think we've seen a surge, not just in the numbers of people playing, but there's just these tens of thousands of recreational players that are now tuning in and watching how pool looks at the highest levels and getting involved in the conversation. And I know that consequence for me has been, I'm a pool coach, whatever. The number of people that have reached out to me that were recreational players that are now serious about the game and wanted to get better at the game has just surged. And I think that's what we've seen. And I think that we've seen it because of the availability from YouTube, Facebook, from the internet in general. And so I think that that's what's creating such a engine of growth in the pool sport is the engagement level from the recreational players. What do you guys think?
Well, what I'm hearing you say is the more people that are going to get involved with the game, the more stupid people there are. Are you insinuating that pool players are stupider than the average population?
Yeah, yes, I am.
Okay, I agree. I mean, you see some of the I swear to God, you see some of these matchroom forums, that the things that people say, the things that people are like arguing for. I mean, these are not very bright bulbs, and maybe the stupidest ones are just the loudest ones. But there are a lot of really stupid statements and discussions, and
you know what I find funny, and what I find funny and quite irritating. It's what Dimitri just turned around and said. It's so easy to go on to your computer and just type in something and you'll get the information. The amount of people that go onto these matchroom forums and start spouting off stuff, and you think, if you would have just taken the time to Google this first, you wouldn't be making an absolute tit of yourself by letting everybody else know how clueless you are actually about the sport and how ridiculous your question or your comment actually is. You know, I mean, there was one guy on there the other day complaining that it was disrespectful that at the Puerto Rico Open that they weren't using the American flag beside Federer's name, and they found that disrespectful. All you simply need to do is just do a little bit of investigation and realize it's a WPA event. The rules are different for change of nationality, and as far as the WPA go, he's not American. As simple as that. You know, it's only Matchroom that recognize him American, and he's going on there. Yeah. He's moaning about it. It's disrespectful, and he's getting all upset, and it's like, oh.
There was another discussion in my Facebook group in my state asking why Margaret Fefilova wasn't playing under the U.S. flag on Team USA.
Exactly, that kind of stuff.
It's the same thing. I mean, she's not a U.S. citizen. And Matchroom, the only reason Federer's playing with Team USA is because Matchroom decided to change a rule that was in place for X amount of years under the WPA that basically allowed Federer to be able to play for the US. That rule doesn't exist for WPA sanctioned events. So,
and it's going to be. I mean, this is something that I was going to bring up as well later.
But that's that's at least a kind of a real question. I mean, that's a hard thing to Google, but
yeah, but
maybe that's why.
You can still Google the rules. I mean, you got to, it just baffles me some of the stuff. But it's going to be quite interesting to see, because I'm assuming that the World Championship is going to happen before the 1st of March, and it will still be run by Matchroom, but it will be WPA sanctioned, probably the last one. What flag does Federer then get? Because the WPA sanctioned it and say he can't be American, but he gets ranking points for the American Mosconi Cup team for next year, and
I'm going to go out on a limit. I'm going to go out on a limit.
What would you guys think of having the WPA and Matchroom each represent somebody from their board, and then they play like a race to 5, and just sort this out?
Can Carl count as Matchroom?
I was going to say, who have the WPA got?
Well, I think Matchroom, according to them, I think Federer is part of the board of directors for Matchroom, according to them. So maybe he could. No,
I reckon Emily would be favorite against the majority of them.
But I'm guessing that to answer your question,
here's a scenario for you, right? 1st of March comes around, and before that time, the WPA and Matchroom finally get together and they sort this out. And the WPA says to Matchroom, okay, you know what? We will give you sole ownership of the 9-ball rankings. The only 9-ball ranking will be your ranking. And Matchroom say, brilliant. Okay, then we will sanction all our events with the WPA like we always have done. Brilliant. Does that then mean that Federer plays for USA this year, but then next year he has to go back to Europe again because the WPA rules on changing nationality means that he can't be American yet?
No. Well, I don't think so, because like by then I think it goes based on. Oh, hold on, because I think what the WPA rule isn't the rule that if you play, like, you could be dual citizenship and you could play for a country, but once you play for that country, it's 4 years until you play for another country. Isn't that how it goes?
No, you have to be inactive for 3 years in WPA events. That's the rule.
Well,
if you want to change, change nationality,
Well,
you can change nationality.
Sure.
But you are not allowed to represent that nationality for a period of 3 years.
But what event has Fedor played in that is a
He's
WPA event?
He's just played the WPA Puerto Rico Open.
Oh, okay, yeah, fair. So then he shouldn't be able to play in the Mosconi Cup at all this year. But
no, it's not. The Mosconi Cup's not sanctioned by the WPA.
Yes, but
as far as I'm aware.
Yes, but by the prize fund part of it, it would. I don't know. It gets kind of goofy, right? Because the prize fund part of it.
That's what I mean. It's a strange one, isn't it?
Yeah,
I mean,
assuming
that the WPA sanction the World Championships before March the 1st.
To be honest with you,
he won't be allowed to have an American flag by his name.
At this point, well, I think to answer your question from earlier, I think if your statement is true, where this is the last event sanctioned with the WPA, I think Matchroom probably sticks a nice sharp stick in their eye and puts an American flag next to Fedor's name just to spite them on the way out the door. Because what does it matter?
For the World Championships, you mean? Yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
Could be.
Yeah, because I mean, what is the WPA going to do? Say, oh, you had a flag next to the wrong player. I guess we're pulling the WPA sanctioning from this, and congratulations, Joshua Phil. You're no longer a world 9-ball champion this year. I mean, it's not like they're going to do that, right?
Yeah, no, I was just saying, does that scenario exist that they come together and say, you know what, let's work together again. We've sorted out our differences before March 1st. WPA, you can sanction all our events. What happens to Federer?
I think at this point in time,
based on WPA rulings, he's not American.
Yeah.
He's still a neutral athlete. He's Russian or a neutral.
And not only is he not an American, he can't be an American player, right?
He can't be an American either.
So I'm guessing what they'll end up doing is just saying, all right, well, Fedor, you're gonna have to go back to that white flag, but you can still play in the World Cup of Pool. You can still play in the Mosconi Cup because we're not going to sanction those with the WPA anyways. Going forward, so like not this year, but the next.
Mosconi Cup was always up until recently sanctioned by the WPA, so I assume it will be sanctioned by the WPA again.
I'm guessing if that's the case, I'm sure Matchroom is just going to say, all right, well, we're going to negotiate that we're not going to sanction the World Cup of Pool, and we're not going to sanction the Mosconi Cup with the WPA, because I mean, if there's two events that don't really need to be sanctioned with the WPA, I mean, that's kind of it, right? So they'll just say, all right, well, we're not, and then you can have Fedor play wherever you want. The only difference is whenever he plays in the European Open or the UK Open, he has to have a white flag against his name instead of a US flag. I'm guessing that's probably the negotiation.
It was just something that went through my head, thinking, well, that's a series of events that could get quite complicated. Yeah,
but I don't know. I mean, it's all speculation, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure there'll be something that's into their if and when they ever get a treaty in place. I'm sure that'll be something that it's discussed. Because it's not just Fedor, it's Kristina Tkach, it's potentially Margaret Fefalova, it's potentially Torsten Holman, Mika Immonen, Darren Appleton.
Yeah, but if they were going to do it, they'd have done it already.
Well, they just had the opportunity starting now. Matchroom just changed the rule. How do we know that? How do we know that Hoven Bustamante isn't going to actually try to make the Mosconi Cup next team?
Yeah, but the thing is that the likes of Mika and Torsten and all those guys, they've lived in America long enough that they could have applied for their citizenship years and years ago if they really wanted to do it, and they would have had it by now.
Yeah, but at the same time when they were doing that, they were also live to make the European Mosconi Cup any given year, so they didn't really have to worry about it. None of those players are ever going to make the Mosconi Cup ever again unless something weird happens, right?
Yeah.
Maybe, but every single one of them probably. I mean, you wouldn't take. Who would you take? Shane Wolford or Mika Immonen? Shane Wolford or Torsten Holman? Shane Wolford or Darren Appleton? I think you'd be a little silly not to take any of those players over Shane at this point in his career. Not that Shane isn't on his way up, but just this year, I mean, you'd have taken probably all three of them over. I don't know, just a thought. I mean, we'll find out, but I don't know. Demetrius loves the Mosconi Cup talk, so I'm sure he's just enjoying this.
You guys, it's interesting. I've been kind of hung up on this kind of the conversation about like the trend of social media. I liked Matt Poland's comment about how fans arguing on social media is good for the sport, and it's about but the kind of the question is, where has all this drama come from? And I think that it's human nature combined with social media. We've seen this, in all walks of life, where people like to crusade for causes and get riled up about stuff. It's a nice pastime. So we've got the right platforms with social media. And so that's number one. Number two, we've got a huge increase of players that are following pool. Number three, we've got everything is on YouTube. So the amount of pool that's being viewed is higher, so that the number of these incidents that can be observed by people has gone up. So we've got more people watching more pool with a means to communicate about it in a setup that encourages kind of the worst in human nature. So you put all that together, it's not surprising that you're going to see a lot of fireworks. What I think is what I think I've been interested in, and it's a little bit of a different question, but we've seen the tournament start filling up, like I said, with Derby and Turning Stone. We've seen the U.S. Open. We've seen so much demand. So and the reason I've seen it, because all those people that come and train with me are serious amateurs. And in the chat, I've seen people saying, this is my first year, I'm going to Derby, I can't wait. There are many, 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 many players that are like, hey man, I want to get to Derby. I want to get to Derby. Dave O'Keefe, a buddy of mine, he's in the chat here, and this is his first year he's going to Derby. And it's like, all of a sudden, this used to be like some big pro event that was kind of like, of course, amateurs played, but it was like a small inner circle event. Now more and more people put it on their hit list item. I want to get there sometime. And now you've got thousands of players that are like, I want to get to Derby sometime. And so my point is, as that happens, I talked to Jesse Engel about it. Here's what Jesse thinks is going to happen. He thinks that that's going to create a huge amount of demand to have a lot more tournaments that are national level in the U.S. and around the area, kind of like not like the Texas Open exactly, but in between Matchroom and regional pool. And that as that happens, he actually think it might evolve into a minor league where people that are like Shane McMahon and Chip Compton might actually have a chance of making a small living, because you've got the major league, the international scene, whether it's Predator, whether it's, Matchroom, whatever. And then you've got like this minor league where you've got so many tournaments that the top players can't go to all of them. And then guys can go to those tournaments and do okay, because the demand is there for more tournaments. So more tournaments will have to appear out of the woodwork. And as they do, the top players are going to have to make choices about where their time is best served. And anyway, I think it's an interesting time in our sport. And I think that all this growth and evolution is internet. And what that's done is change the platform in which we can communicate, but also has brought way more recreational players to the game. And that's created this huge surge of growth. And I think the game is changing rapidly as far as how that looks. So, I mean, that's what I find interesting about it all.
Yeah. So it is a knock-on effect. If a proper professional tour is created like Matchroom is doing, and they fill up 40 weeks of the year, then of course these players who are playing in all these, they can't go to all the other tournaments and sort of pick up the extra 2,000, 3,000 just because they've got a free weekend, because they don't have free weekends. So that money then goes to other players. And other players of a lower level see that they have more opportunity to cash in these tournaments because the top dogs are not going to be there. Then of course it's more incentive for them to go and play them, and then there's more of there's more demand for these tournaments. It's just a knock-on effect, and everything goes up. Once you take these top elite players and take them out of the big pool, at the moment we're all in the same pond. Once you take those big fish out and put them in their own pool, all of a sudden the people, the rest of the pond think, oh, this is a lot more comfortable. This is a lot more, my kind of thing and my kind of level.
I mean, it's a lot like the PGA Tour.
That's professional sport. That's professional sport. I don't believe that a player of my level should be allowed to play in these tournaments. I like that there's the Open tournaments, the US Open, the European Open, the UK Open. It's great because I get the opportunity to put my name in. Maybe I get a game, but I'm not a level that I should be playing in top professional tournaments. These guys should be out of reach for players of my level. I should be playing in amateur tournaments at the level that I'm playing in. And I'm a high level amateur, and that's where I belong. These guys, the superstars of the game, should be the superstars of the game, and they should be kept away from, us mere mortals who just run the occasional rack kind of thing.
Well, or if you are playing in these events, it's because you won a series of qualifiers that got you a guaranteed spot into it.
Exactly, you've earned it. You haven't just been that guy who
you haven't paid $500. You haven't paid $500.
Refreshed at the right moment, and boom, I've got a spot, kind of thing.
And I think that's the way it's going to go. I mean, I do think that there's got to be, I mean, like you said, Matchroom is going to get to the spot where they've got a full, the international players, the true professional full-time players are going to have a full calendar, and it's going to be a little bit more segregated from the national level tournaments, to where, tournaments like in the US, like the Turning Stone and the Texas Open and a number of other events that are good tournaments, but not international events. We might, and we're going to probably see a lot more. I mean, look at the Texas Open was a great example that filled up months in advance too. So if all these national level tournaments are filling up months in advance, and then there's going to have to be more of them. And eventually you're going to have, like Jim says, you're going to have 40 weekends of international pool, keeping the top pros busy. And then eventually you're going to have, eventually I think you're going to see a better tournament scene on the amateur level. That's at the semi-pro level. And I think it's kind of interesting to see how there might create more of a path for aspiring players to move up the ranks,
Well, I think we got to get to a point eventually where these events are not just open events that you can sign up for by pressing a button, refresh at the right time. I mean, it's got to get to the point where it is like the World Pool Championships, or the World Pool Championships, where you get an invite or you don't play. I mean, that's the only way that you can get into them.
I think where it ends up going is you end up with it's a proper professional tour, and there's 128. Let's say 128 players. They have their tour card for that year, and they will get to the 128 will automatically be in the World Championships or the 256 fields. You're automatically in. If you want to get into the Masters or something like that, then you have to be higher up the rank. And there's maybe a tournament that's only for the top 64 on the ranking. There's a tournament that's a 128 tournament, and 64 get automatic, and there's qualifying for the other places. That'll be kind of thing. So there'll be an incentive for you to not just get into the 128, but then to move up to past the 72 or past the 64, so that it opens up more doors for you for other tournaments. And the tournaments will be then graded based on, if you're in the top 8, you're in all tournaments. If you're in the top 16, you're probably in all tournaments, but the 64 and above, you'll get some tournaments, others you're going to have to qualify for, and incentivize every single group of players in that 128 and above to the 256, incentivize you to go a step further and go into the next group where you'll be getting invitations to more stuff. I think that's I see that the way that being the way it's going, and
we're getting to the point.
You get rewarded. You get more and more rewarded for what you achieve.
Yeah. Well, we're getting to the point. We're getting to the point where, like, and I hate to pick on this player, but this was like the player that got kind of super famous because he drew Judd Trump 2 years ago. We're getting to the point where a Joe McGee should not be playing in a U.S. Open. There are enough touring professionals and enough players that want to play in these things. I mean, all the way down to like a Sullivan Clark from New Zealand. He's been playing a lot of events the last 5-6 years. The last 5 to 6 months, even all the way back to a year and a half. And there are a lot of players like that are giving a go at it and trying to do this at a professional level, to where every Joe McGee that plays in this event is one less Sullivan Clark that can't live out their dreams at one of the biggest events of the year, all because somebody wants to play against potentially the best player in the world. And there is something to that. I mean, I'm not trying to say like the guy shouldn't have an opportunity to, get in the box and play those players, but at some point in time, he should not have the opportunity. I mean,
I think
you can't just go play on Augusta. I mean, you can't do that. I mean, you actually have to earn your way there. And I think that we have to get to that just for the professional side of pool.
I think we will. It's still very, very early and very, very fresh. We will get to that stage. We'll get to the stage that you are not getting into one of these tournaments on a 560, 650 Fargo. You're just not getting in. You got zero chance. Simple as that.
Yeah, I think that it's a new problem, and I think it's a new problem for the reasons I talked about, and that so that it will evolve, and it will evolve quickly. And I'm interested to see the changes both at the international level and at that semi-pro level. I just wanted to answer to Ryan's question. I am playing all the events. I'm going solo. I'm not sure about the other two guys you mentioned, but Derby would be one of the tournaments that I would not consider to be a pro level only tournament. I think that Derby should always be, the kind of like the national level, open to amateurs to compete with semi-pros, to compete with the pros that want to play. So I think that Turning Stone and Texas Open and Derby and all these things, there's going to be a lot of tournaments, and there will be more. I think there will be more like that become, good good tournaments for amateurs to go to and pros, semi-pros to go to. I just think that it's going to, I think that we're talking about like the U.S. Open and some of these international events are the ones that might be evolving towards pro only. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Matchroom are creating the World 9-Ball Tour. It's a professional tour, so it should only really be professional players that are in there. You commit yourself to the game, you commit yourself to being professional, and you qualify. It's as simple as that. If they want to let amateurs play in these tournaments, then start the tournament 3 days early and let the amateurs come and let the best 16 amateurs get 16 spots in the tournament, and then the rest of the pros come and join the tournament on the Wednesday. You've already played Monday, Tuesday to get your spot to play with them on the Wednesday.
I like that idea. And then you can open up to potentially 600 amateurs if you wanted to.
You can have as many as you want. And think about the extra money that goes into the tournament with all these amateurs fighting for these spots.
Yeah, sure. No, I like that. I don't know.
Matt Boland's saying there, flirting with a tour card notion, it will be exactly that, a tour card. You will earn your tour card.
It has to be, right? It has to be. Yeah, I mean, like I said, you can't just go golf Augusta because you have $100,000 in your wallet and you want to give it to Augusta. You got to earn your way onto Augusta. I mean, for every hacker that's out there at the U.S. Open and pool, that doesn't exist in golf. I mean, you don't just happen to make your way on there as a 18 handicap. I mean, that just doesn't work, and I think it just has to. I think we're also getting there too. So, but I also love the idea of like opening up the amateurs. You want to have 500 amateurs and they're all playing for 16 spots. You're there 2 days early. I love that idea. Let's see what it is.
I mean, you go to Augusta, you get the Masters or the US or whatever. You've always got the top 5 amateurs are invited to play as well. The amateur champion, the US amateur champion, the European amateur champion. They're all invited to go and play. Do something. Yeah, that works in any sport. But they've earned their right to play there. They haven't just been lucky and gone on their computer at the right time and there's a spot for me. I'll take it. $500. I'm in. Yeah, that's not the way.
And you can't make 3 balls in a row in those conditions.
Exactly.
I mean, I go play on those. I go play on those tables as like, I know you're considering yourself a top amateur player, I guess, Jim. But in Europe, maybe you are a top amateur. In the U.S., like I'm borderline a top amateur, and I can't play on those tables. I mean, they're just tough. I mean, if you've never played on 4-inch pockets,
they are tough. Yeah.
The U.S. Open was absolutely brutal, and I saw it all the way to the highest levels of the players that you can think of. Were up until the last few matches when people were really in stroke and really dialed in and at the top of their game. But if you even in the final 64, I was watching ringside as top Euro players were selling out from the 7-ball, 3-ball runs. 5-6 times in a row, like ball in hand on the 7-ball, missing 8 balls, missing 9 balls, shaking their head, confused as to what was going on. It was ridiculously difficult. Very, very tough.
But that's again, it's professional sport. There has to be a difference. It's simple as that. You can't. It's got to be tough. You've got to make this game tough for these top guys. Otherwise, it's just. You'll never separate the good from the great unless you make it tough. If you set the bar where the game is played, the level of the game means that there's 300 players who can run tables, you're not getting the best of the best. You need to make the game difficult enough so that it's only the elite players that can really play it to a high level.
Yeah,
and then you have a professional sport.
I agree. It was really, really fun to watch players play and not know if they were going to run out just because the balls were open. Like they still, they could run out. They were still the favorite to run out. You expected them to have a good chance, but that at any moment, if they just hit one ball a little rough, it could hang up. And the pressure that adds to them. I'm 100% with you, Jim. I think that for the international players, as good as the players are playing today and as many good players as they are, if we can make the game a little, I like it. It
sorts out the men from the boys. At the moment, pool's getting played in pool halls with these 4.5-inch pockets. It's like playing tennis on a court that's the size of a football pitch with a net that's the height of a table tennis net. That's basically what playing in your local pool hall is. That's not tough enough for top players.
Yeah.
Simple.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Well, what do you guys think? Is that a good discussion for the day?
Yeah, I've got to wrap up myself. I've got to go pick up my daughter from school in a minute here. So that's where I have to bow out. So if you guys want to continue, you may, but
I think we've upset enough people, have we? We didn't upset anybody. Maybe Pinozo.
It's fun, guys. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. Really cool.
Yeah, thanks for all the stuff in the chat. It was good fun.
Yeah.
Good to have you two back. Hopefully, it's not another 6 months before we see you again.
Nah, we'll be back.
Oh, Ed Lidawi just
Ed's here. Let's get out of here.
Ed Lidawi just tuned in. Ed, we give you one question, and we'll give you 5 minutes. You've got what? Ed, give us something to talk about, and we'll do
just for Ed. Encore. We'll do a little encore for Ed. My battery's
Patreon, Ed Lidawi. This is what happens when you become. This is what happens when you become a Patreon. We do stuff like this. So Matt Poland and Ed Lidawi, two of the last three people, and actually Brett Snowden is I think a Patreon too. If not, he was in the past. I'm pretty sure he still is. So
his question is, what did I miss? I'm going to go with the 9-ball on the hill when I was watching you play that. No, nothing. Okay.
Oh,
I'm just kidding. I have no idea.
Does Ed miss balls? I can't imagine Ed miss balls. Ed says he'll just watch. Well, we're finished now, Ed. Patreon for life. Make the pros play on 10 foots with 4-inch pockets.
I think we should make it. I think I'll tell you what. Here's what I think. I think before the pros play their match, to just toughen it up for everybody, they should have to have some of the magic mushroom stuff, and then let them go to work. You know, anybody can listen. Anybody can play pool when they're not on a spirit quest. But I want to see.
It's going to make you even better. It's the level of focus.
You know what's just happened. Ed's just tuned in, missed pretty much the entirety of the show, and then you jump in and start talking about magic mushrooms. He's completely confused now. He has no idea what's going on.
Well, I want to try this energy supplement, but I got to say it's a little bit of a, is it false advertising when they get your hopes up like that, and then it just turns out that it's like all natural ingredient? Nothing.
Well, I'll send you some, Demetrius. You can try it out.
Okay, I will. I'll let you know how it goes.
Once I get the samples, we'll let you try it out. All right. Now I'm making the executive decision. We're getting out of here. All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in.
Thanks for tuning in, guys.